I quit work. I'm done. Finished. No more. No, seriously. Moving and living abroad has given me a lot of perspective. Um, Guys, I can't tell you that the amount of work I've done basically within the last year, 365 days, 12 months, however you want to chalk it up, um, probably represents maybe 1 to 2 months of work I was doing in the States. I was doing last year. Cumulatively, like my average output has been over the last like 4 or 5 years. Before leaving the States, my average output has been about 55 hours a week, of at least making myself available, getting in the car, taking a text or responding to a text, taking a call, responding to an email, being in a meeting, right? Getting into the minutia of day to day, work schedule, doing all sorts of stuff, man. Like I spent anywhere from 10 to 12 hours on average a day for the last couple of years prior to me leaving the States. So yeah, the basically over the last 365 days, the amount of work I've done has been about the same amount of work I would have done within maybe 6 to 8 weeks of working in the States. I kid you not. And this allowed me to understand two things, maybe three, if you bear with me. One, we're working too much and we're working to kill ourselves because we live in the most opportunistic place in America, the United States of America, land of the free, home of the brave, place of opportunity, blah, 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 right? It's a very capitalist, environment. If you work, you should be able to make a decent living. If you make a decent living, you should be able to, save for your future, blah, 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 but you can't. There's all these variables. We get all that, But, at the end of the day, we are killing ourselves. We work too much, even when we don't think we have to work or we're on vacation, we think we have to work, or we're forced to work, right? It's just days off. It's complicated. It's just, we're like robots. So that's just number one. I just realized this is what we do. We're just robots. Because going to these other countries, there's just so many holidays. People, one, have family businesses, so they can close down whatever the hell they want. And people aren't really lacking or needing for anything outside of a meal or two to eat during the day, some gas for transportation, but ultimately time off to be with their family. That's just it. That's just what we realized. So we're working too much and we're working to kill ourselves. I just put that together. And then two, it's gotten to the point where I'm trying to sort of assimilate myself and understand how to leverage opportunities that I have, leverage, the platforms like YouTube, right? So I've started multiple channels. I have this channel, guys. I have my family channel, and I've started 3 other channels that are very extremely slowly starting to get traction, but I only started them the last 2 or 3 months. So this is a couple years in the making. But then also investing into my high yield savings account, investing into a Vanguard IRA, which I obviously pull from to, purchase assets, right? So EFTs right now, nothing complex in the portfolio. I'm playing the long game. I have a very strategic plan, for money to start to work for me, understanding dividends and what that means. And, really doing all this in a manner of, trying to, ascertain towards like financial stability and financial freedom very soon in the next couple of years, right? So putting together content, for passive income, obviously saving and investing, and I'm more so investing, right? So investing, like I said, in my high yield savings account with a percent interest to return annually, as well as, through my IRA or really my portfolio, right? I'm just dealing with 2 EFTs at the moment. It's a 2% dividend yield on average. And my share should produce anywhere from 6 to 10% annually. So I've looked at all of this stuff, guys, because at the end of the day, money should be working for us. But at the same time, we don't need a lot. We think we do, but we don't. I'm just telling y'all, whether y'all believe me or not, want to believe me, if you got people who experience living outside the States, you don't need a lot of money. You just need to work for you. And so leaving the States was allowing me to work, has been allowing me to work more in a passive setting, right? So drastically decreasing my hours. Like I'm working 10 to 12 hours a day minimum, or an average, so it's skewed. Sometimes I work 15 to 16 hours. That includes drive time. And now, like, I only do that a week sometimes, right? So like my first 2 months, being in Thailand, I wasn't working. I wanted a break. I'm chilling. I'm figuring out things. I'm looking at the views. I'm with my wife and kids, right? That's just what I was doing the last 2 months. Then I started up working again for, doing like 4 to 5 hours of work, if that. And then I found something, obviously that can pay me more, that can help me do two things, right? Achieve and maintain cost of living here, and then also save, like I was just talking about. So, but still working, core hours, 12, maybe 15 hours a week, maybe 2 hours a day, roughly 4 to 5 days a week, 10 to 12 hours. So again, the last 5 to 6 months, 10 to 12 hours a week, that's what I was doing a day minimum in the States, especially within the last 2 to 3 years in the States. Being in construction, being in management, it's hell. It's just crazy. So no, I didn't quit my job today, but guys, I am planning for that day. When I say I'm planning, I'm obsessing over it. I'm not trying to rush life, but in this instance, I am. But I'm planning for it. So no, I didn't quit my job today, right now, this week, this month, no. But I am looking to be financially independent here in the next 18 to 24 months. I am. So sometime in 2028, if not right before it, if things aggressively work in my favor, then boom. But yeah, in the next 18, 24 months, 2028, done, guys. I'm not going to be playing this game. I've worked a lot. I worked a lot. Even I'm turning 32 this year. I worked a lot the last 10 to 15 years. I've done a lot of work, I've just done a lot. I feel like I've worked for almost 20 years, within the last 9 to 10, just because you got to put so much time and effort. And when I work, I'm really about results, relationships, effort. I don't half-ass stuff, So even working for another company, I'm not half-assing. It's just not my personality. I take initiative. I do this and that. So if I have the same energy and drive towards something I can build, maintain, and scale, then I should be okay. Especially, and this is the caveat, when the cost of living is 60 to 70% lower than what I was doing in the States. And that's the caveat. That's just where it stands. So anyway, I just did this to get this off my chest. Because when I say, like, if there's a camera on the wall, or like if I just had a GoPro on me, or if you guys can just read my mind, 60 to 70% of my thoughts is getting out of work. Work is killing you. Working is the new indentured servitude. Working is the modern day slavery. However you want to chalk it up. Working is exhausting. Working, it sucks your soul. We live in a time where there's just too much money out there. There's too much opportunity, right? So to be able to capitalize on some opportunity, especially being American, I'm going to do such. But I do want to understand that the way we're working right now, guys, it's not working, man. Like, we have to adapt. We have to own. We have to create. We do have to monetize. And we have to start learning to scale back. Number 4, which is really a number 1 thing. We consume too much. And that's why when we do retire, whether it's retire at 40, retire at 59, 70, we think we have to go back, or we end up going back to work because we consume too much. Lifestyle creep is real. All this stuff, guys. I'm not gonna get into all this stuff. This can be like a 2 or 3 hour video if I do. But all this stuff, so I am very cognizant. I assume people who are trying to retire early, especially buyer before the age of 40, right, have to be very cognizant of spending, of consumerism. They have to look at the economy. And you just have to play your cards right. You have to strategize. And that is what I've been doing since leaving the States. And it's now ramped up the last 3 to 6 months, just really strategizing where I can live, my cost of living, what is really the basis of our cost of living, what is really needed, trying to save 10 to 25% of my income every month. 10 to 25%. Because it's the long-term game. This is no get rich quick. We're not doing nothing of this. I'm not looking to go viral on YouTube because my content I talk about doesn't serve, the viral bug or the characteristics of going viral. I don't talk about things, YouTube isn't gonna push me like that. I already know that because just the stuff I talk about. So this is a long-term plan, this is the plan. This is just, it's minimums. I have percent of errors, I have contingencies, but we got to, and I'm saying we, for the demographic who is trying to be with me on this, who is looking at their time clock and it's like, life is short. So you want to make the best of it. And you can't do that working 2/3, 3/4, 4/5 of your life. You can't. Quality life is gone if you're working around the clock. It is, so I don't subscribe to that. I am in my process of doing a mental quiet quit, but I am working on the back end to really back up what I say. That's just my goal. Before I turn 34, I want to be done, so if this is your first time seeing Black, if you guys are with me on this, man, woman, boy, girl, if you're late teens, early 20s, and you want to do this too, do it, man. Start and move you. I move anybody trying to figure out how to work passively and or make income passively. Starts fully remote. If you can work a remote job, do it. If you can work fully remote where you can work wherever you need to or want to, do it. And then if you could just use that income and build and scale, save, and just be aggressive with your plans. Life can be sweet, man. Life can be sweet. The S&P, things like the S&P 500, and just overall growth with mutual funds and EFTs, especially EFTs. Look at that dividend yield, look at the percent of return on your shares. Play it safe, but play it consistent. A lot of those EFTs should be like at level 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. But just a little bit of your, just every month, for the next 5 years. Things can change. I can't imagine if I did this 5 years ago. I can't imagine if I did this 10 years ago. I can't imagine. So I'm trying to do this very early. So it's gonna take some aggression, some consistency, and obviously some favor in the market. Because that's what all life's about. They say to work hard, but it's really favor / luck and connections. So. But I've quit in my head. It's just now I got to have my body in the physicalness, right? Get into stage 6 and stage 7 of, financial freedom. That's just what we just got to get to, because it's just opportunities there. There's so many places to live in this world where you don't have to make and live off of a lot of money. And that's what I'm moving to. So anyway, guys, I just keep going on and on. One day, if my channel does go crazy, maybe I'll do a live and just talk about stuff. I can stay on live and just talk. But anyway, this is where I'm at. So again, document this for me. I want to look back in the next 2 or 3 years and be like, wow, you said exactly what you did and favor was on your side. So this is for me, but if I'm here to motivate anybody who's trying to do the same path, something similar, close to it, you got real estate, you won the lottery, I don't know, you got a big contract with work, you're a contractor working in the Middle East or whatever. Like if you guys are doing certain things, shout out to y'all. Get into the bag without killing yourself is the goal, man. We just got to change the mindset and mind frame in the way we're working, at least. And then pivot, grow, scale, maintain, build. That's it, guys.